I buried my mother 18 years ago, so tell me why her name was locked inside Adrian Cole's safe. The vacuum stopped humming at 17 minutes after midnight, and in the sudden silence, that thought became louder than every warning I had ever ignored. I stood alone on the 60th floor of Cole Tower, one hand wrapped around the vacuum handle and the other pressed against my ribs, as if I could calm my heart by holding it in place. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan glittered beneath a thin December rain. Silver streets, blurred headlights, a city made beautiful by distance. I was 26 years old, 5 hours into my second job, and I had no business touching anything in Adrian Cole's office except the trash cans and the polished black floor. Everyone on the night crew knew the rules. Mr. Cole's desk was cleaned only with a dry cloth. His papers were never moved. His private bathroom was handled by a supervisor. The large abstract painting behind his desk was not to be touched under any circumstances. I had heard that final instruction so often that it seemed to belong to the room itself. Do not touch the painting. Do not ask why. Finish your work and leave. But that night, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then the building settled into a low electrical hum. The painting shifted against the wall with a soft wooden click. I looked up. Its lower edge had tilted forward by less than an inch. It should not have mattered. I should have called maintenance, written a note, and continued cleaning. Instead, I noticed a narrow line of darkness behind the frame. Curiosity begins as something small. A glance. One step closer. A hand raised before common sense can stop it. I told myself I was only making sure the painting would not fall. I set the vacuum aside and crossed the office, my rubber-soled shoes silent against the dark hardwood. The room smelled faintly of cedar, coffee, and clean leather, the kind I associated with stores where no one displayed the prices. Adrian Cole's desk faced the city like a command center. Everything on it had been arranged with impossible precision. One silver pen, one closed laptop, one untouched glass of water. There were no family photographs, no decorations, nothing suggesting that the man who controlled 47 companies had ever needed anyone. I carefully pushed the painting toward the wall. It moved too easily. The hidden safe behind it was already open. Not wide, perhaps 3 inches, just enough for its brass edge to catch the city light. My mouth went dry. Someone had forgotten to lock it, or someone had opened it on purpose. Neither possibility involved me. I stepped back. Then I saw the folder. It rested near the front of the safe, black against black except for the white label fixed across its spine. Rebecca Brooks. My mother's name. For a second, I believed exhaustion had invented it. I had worked 9 hours at a grocery store before coming to Cole Tower. I had eaten half a granola bar for dinner. My aunt's hospital bill was folded inside my purse like a threat I could not escape. Maybe my eyes were tired. Maybe New York held hundreds of women named Rebecca Brooks. But my mother's name had a shape I knew better than my own. I had seen it on old birthday cards, school forms, and the back of the faded photograph I kept in a box beneath my bed. Rebecca and Brooks. The woman I had been told died in an industrial fire when I was 8 years old. I should have walked away. I know that. I have replayed that moment so many times that I can almost see another version of myself stepping back, calling my supervisor, and returning to my small apartment in Queens with my life still intact. But that woman did not exist. I reached into the safe. The folder felt cold beneath my fingertips, heavier than paper should feel. I pulled it free and opened it on Adrian Cole's desk. The first page held a photograph. My mother stood beside a much younger man I recognized from business magazines as Charles Cole, Adrian's late father. She appeared to be about 30 years old, wearing a navy suit and a serious expression I had never seen in our family pictures. Behind them was the original Cole Industries logo. Beneath the photograph, neat black letters identified her as Senior Financial Strategist, Special Projects Division. I read the words twice. My mother had told everyone that she worked as an accountant for a shipping company. Nothing more. My hands began to tremble. I turned the page. There were bank records, internal memoranda, travel logs, and photographs taken from a distance. My mother entering a hotel in Boston. My mother standing outside a courthouse. My mother holding my hand as we crossed a street. I was 5 years old in that picture, wearing a yellow raincoat. I had never seen it before. A silver key had been fastened to the next page. The initials H and B were engraved into the metal. My initials. I touched them, and something deep inside me went still. Beneath the key was a document describing the transfer of company shares. Several names had been concealed, but Rebecca Brooks remained visible beside a percentage large enough to make my breath catch. Then I found the final photograph. It showed me asleep in a hospital bed at 8 years old, a bandage around my wrist, and my mother sitting beside me. On the back, written in blue ink, were 6 words. Protect Hannah until she remembers everything. I did not hear the elevator. I did not hear footsteps crossing the reception area. I only heard the office door close behind me with a quiet, deliberate click. Every muscle in my body locked. A man's reflection appeared in the dark window across from the desk. Tall, motionless, dressed in a charcoal overcoat beaded with rain. Adrian Cole had returned. He did not raise his voice. Somehow, that made it worse. Put the file down, he said. I turned slowly, still holding the photograph. He stood about 10 feet away, his dark hair damp from the weather, and his expression controlled with the kind of precision that made the entire room feel smaller. I had seen him from a distance before, crossing the lobby while executives hurried to keep pace. Up close, he seemed less like a businessman and more like a locked door. His eyes moved from the open safe to the pages spread across his desk. Then they settled on my face. The anger I expected never came. Instead, the color drained from his expression. He stared at me as though I had stepped out of a memory he had spent years trying to bury. His gaze dropped to the photograph in my hand, then returned to my eyes. Say your name, he said. My throat tightened. Hannah Brooks. The silence that followed felt endless. Adrian took one slow step forward. Not threatening, not gentle, certain. His eyes searched my face, and for the first time, the most powerful man in the building looked afraid. You have her eyes, he whispered. Then he reached behind him and locked the office door. I stared at the lock as if that small turn of metal had changed the laws of the room. Perhaps it had. A few seconds earlier, I had been a night cleaner holding a file I was never supposed to see. Now Adrian Cole stood between me and the only exit, looking at me as though my face had opened a grave. I tightened my grip on the photograph. Unlock the door. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Adrian did not move. Rain traced silver lines down the windows behind him, and the city below seemed impossibly far away. I cannot do that yet. You cannot keep me here. I know. His answer was so calm that it frightened me more than anger would have. He looked toward the safe, then back at me. Someone arranged for you to enter this office tonight. Until I know why, leaving through the main hallway may expose you to whoever planned it. My heart struck hard against my ribs. Is that a threat? It is a warning. He crossed toward the desk slowly, stopping several feet away. He did not reach for the documents or try to take the photograph. He only watched my hands shake. Who knows you are on this floor? My supervisor. Her name? Denise Carter. He removed his phone and sent one message. The gesture was quick, almost casual. Then he placed the phone face down on the desk. What did you do? I asked. I told Denise that building security reassigned you to the 48th floor for the rest of your shift. You lied to her. Yes. You erased me. Something changed in his expression. Not guilt. Recognition. No, he said quietly. I am trying to prevent someone else from doing that. The words settled over the room like cold dust. I looked at the file again. My mother standing beside Charles Cole. My initials carved into a key. Photographs of my childhood hidden. Inside a Billionaire's wall. You knew who I was. Adrian looked away for the first time. That was answer enough. Heat rose into my face. You knew my name. You knew where I worked. I recognized your employee photograph 3 weeks ago. And you said nothing. Your mother asked me not to approach you unless you discovered the truth yourself. My mother was dead. That is what you were told. My fingers went numb. The photograph slipped from my hand and landed on the desk. What does that mean? Adrian's control returned piece by piece, but I had already seen the crack beneath it. Rebecca survived the warehouse fire. The words were simple, clear, impossible. I shook my head. No. My aunt identified her belongings. There was a funeral. There was an empty casket. You cannot know that. I attended the funeral. My breath caught. You were a teenager. I was 17. His eyes lowered. Your mother led me through a service corridor before the smoke reached the stairwell. She returned for a financial ledger. I never saw her again. I stepped away from the desk. My knees felt weak, but I refused to sit. Then how could she ask you to find me? Adrian reached inside his coat, and removed a folded piece of paper sealed in a clear protective sleeve. The paper was old, creased at the edges, and covered with faded blue ink. He placed it between us. This was delivered 6 years after the fire. 12 years ago. I recognized the handwriting before I read a single word. I knew the slant of the letters. I knew the way my mother crossed each T with a line that stretched too far to the right. My vision blurred. Adrian waited until I picked it up. The note was short. Adrian, if you receive this, then I failed to return. Find Hannah. Watch over her from a distance. Do not bring her into the Cole world unless she discovers the truth herself. When she does, tell her I was not innocent. My name appeared 3 times. Each one felt like a hand reaching through time. Where did this come from? I whispered. A law office in Vermont. The attorney who sent it closed his practice the following week. By the time I arrived, every file connected to your mother had been removed. I read the final sentence again. I was not innocent. The mother I remembered baked cinnamon rolls on Sundays. She sang old Motown songs while folding laundry. She taught me to hate lies, or at least I believed she had. What did she do? Adrian did not answer. What did my mother do? I do not know everything. Then tell me what you know. He studied me, measuring something. Perhaps courage. Perhaps risk. Then he walked to the wall beside the bookcase and pressed his thumb against a narrow black panel hidden between 2 shelves. A section of dark wood slid inward. Behind it was a secure room lit by a single row of white lights. I saw metal cabinets, computer monitors, maps, and photographs arranged in careful lines. My photograph was among them. Not one. Dozens. Me leaving community college. Me carrying groceries outside my apartment. Me sitting beside Aunt Claire in a hospital waiting room. Every year of my adult life had been reduced to dates, addresses, and silent images. You have been watching me. From a distance. Do not call this protection. I stepped into the room, anger cutting through my shock. You had no right. I agree. The answer stopped me. Adrian stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Then why did you do it? Because 2 people began searching for you after your 18th birthday. One of them was connected to Grant Mercer. I turned toward him. The chairman of your board? My father's closest advisor. His mouth tightened. And the man your mother feared most. A green light began flashing on one of the monitors. Adrian crossed the room and checked the display. I watched the calm leave his face. What is it? He closed the screen too quickly. A security alert. Show me. He opened the display again. Someone had accessed my employee file from an executive terminal 3 floors below, less than 1 minute earlier. Adrian reached for his phone. Who knows I am here? I asked. Someone who should not. He sent another message, then looked at the photographs as though every precaution he had taken had failed at once. You asked why I locked the door, he said. This is why. The handle moved behind us. Once. Slowly. Someone on the other side tried it again. Adrian turned off the lights in the secure room and placed one finger to his lips. In the darkness, his voice was barely more than breath. From this moment forward, Hannah, trust no one in this building. Not even me. The handle moved a 3rd time, then stopped. Adrian stood perfectly still beside me in the dark, listening. I could hear the rain against the glass, the faint machinery inside the walls, and my own breathing, which sounded far too loud for a room built to hide secrets. A small monitor beside the door flickered to life. The security camera showed a broad-shouldered man in a navy suit standing outside the office with both hands visible. Adrian studied the image before touching a button beneath the screen. State the phrase, he said. The man looked directly into the camera. The north elevator stops at 59. Adrian unlocked the secure room, crossed the office, and opened the main door. The man entered without hesitation. He appeared to be about 38, with close-cropped brown hair and the tired eyes of someone who trusted sleep less than most people trusted strangers. Noah Bennett, Adrian said. Head of security. Noah glanced at the open safe, then at me. His expression changed for less than a second, but I noticed. Recognition. You know who I am, I said. I helped Adrian confirm your identity 3 weeks ago, Noah replied. I turned toward Adrian. How many people have been discussing my life without me? Too many, Adrian said. That ends tonight. Noah placed a tablet on the desk and turned it toward us. Her assignment was changed at 10:43 tonight. The request came from a terminal registered to Grant Mercer's office. His calendar claims he is in Washington, but his access card entered this building at 11:28. What about the safe? Adrian asked. Noah enlarged another section of the report. It opened at 12:11 using a legacy board override created under Charles Cole. Grant retained access after Charles died. The system should have canceled it years ago. Adrian's jaw tightened. That failure belongs to me. I looked at the painting, the open safe, and the folder positioned with my mother's name facing outward. Grant wanted me to find it. Or he wanted Adrian to catch you finding it, Noah said. Either outcome would force a confrontation. Adrian gathered the papers with careful hands. Grant has spent years trying to determine what your mother left behind. If he believed you could lead him to it, he needed a reason to bring you into the open. I looked at the silver key fastened inside the folder. What did she leave? Adrian exchanged a glance with Noah. I hated that glance. It belonged to people who had shared a secret so long that silence had become a language. Tell me, I said. Adrian removed the key and placed it in my palm. The metal felt cold. The engraved initials pressed into my skin. Your mother designed the financial structure that transformed coal industries from a regional shipping company into a global corporation, he said. She created private trusts, acquisition channels, and internal accounts that almost no one else understood. She was an accountant. She was much more than that. Noah moved toward the windows, watching the hallway in the reflection. Adrian continued. At first, Rebecca believed she was protecting the company from hostile takeovers and political pressure. Later, she discovered that parts of her system were being used without her approval. Used for what? Hidden payments, secret ownership transfers, money routed through companies that existed only on paper. His voice remained controlled, but the shame beneath it was unmistakable. My father knew some of it. Grant knew all of it. I thought of my mother singing while she packed my school lunch. I thought of the woman in the Navy suit standing beside Charles Cole, her posture straight and her expression certain. They felt like two different people wearing the same eyes. She helped build the system. Adrian did not look away. Yes. Why? She believed she could control what she created. She believed keeping the system in her hands would protect the company and the people who depended on it. That sounds like an excuse. It was her mistake, he said. Not her excuse. I closed my fingers around the key. What? Changed. Adrian touched the old letter resting on the desk. You did. One word. Quietly spoken. It stopped me. After you were born, Rebecca began separating herself from the company. She copied records, created a private archive, and moved a block of shares into an irrevocable trust. For me, that is what we believe. You believe? The trust used the project name Eden. The word stirred something faint inside me. Not a memory exactly. More like the echo of a song heard through a wall. I have heard that before. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Where? I do not know. Maybe my mother said it. Maybe Aunt Claire did. Noah turned from the window. We need to move. Someone disabled the executive elevators and requested manual access to this floor. Adrian took the black folder, but I kept the key. There is a private stairwell behind the conference room, he said. It leads to a secure records suite on the 58th floor. It is not listed in the public directory. Of course it is not, I muttered. Under any other circumstances, the absurdity might have made me laugh. Nothing felt funny now. We crossed the dark office. Noah opened a narrow door concealed behind a wooden panel, revealing concrete steps descending into dim amber light. The air smelled of dust and cold metal. Adrian went first. I followed him, with Noah behind me. We passed the door marked 59, descended another flight, and entered the secure records suite on 58. Rows of steel cabinets stretched beneath low lights. Adrian led us to a small locker at the far end. There was no keypad, only a keyhole. My hand shook as I inserted the silver key. It turned smoothly, as if it had been waiting for me. Inside was a single white box. My name was written across the lid in my mother's handwriting. Hannah Eden Brooks. I stared at the middle name. That is not my legal name. Adrian said nothing. I lifted the lid. On top of the papers lay an original birth certificate. My birth certificate. The mother's name was Rebecca Brooks. The space for the father was not blank. It listed Daniel Hart. Beneath the certificate was a photograph of my mother holding me as a newborn. On the back, she had written one sentence. Project Eden was never an account. She was my daughter, and she was the only thing I built that I refused to let them own. For several seconds, the only sound in the records suite was the soft mechanical hum above us. I read the birth certificate again, waiting for the letters to rearrange themselves into something less impossible. They did not. Daniel Hart. The name sat where my father's name should have been, written in the same black ink as the rest of my life. I looked at Adrian. Who was he? His face tightened. Daniel was my father's co-founder and closest friend. My father called him a brother, but they were not related by blood or law. Why did no one tell me? Daniel died before you were born. Your mother believed his connection to Cole Industries would make you a target. My eyes dropped to the photograph of Rebecca holding me. She looked exhausted, but she was smiling. Not the careful smile from the company photograph. This one was real. How did he die? I asked. Adrian glanced toward Noah before answering. His private plane went down over Lake Erie 8 months before your birth. The official investigation blamed mechanical failure, and my mother did not believe that. No, the lights flickered. Noah immediately checked his tablet. We have lost the security feed on this level. Adrian closed the white box and pushed it toward me. Take it. What else is inside? Daniel transferred his shares to Rebecca before he died. She later placed them in an irrevocable trust administered by an independent trust company in Delaware. You are the sole beneficiary. How much? 22% of Cole Industries. I stared at him. 22% sounded like a number from another language. I thought about the overdue hospital statement inside my purse. I thought about calculating the price of groceries before reaching the register. That cannot be real. It is. I clean your office. Adrian's expression shifted, almost painfully. Your job does not determine what belongs to you. The words landed somewhere deep. I had spent years being told what my life was worth by people who never learned my name. $10 in tips. Hourly wage. A missed shift I could not afford. Now the man whose name covered the building was telling me that part of it had belonged to me all along. Why has no one from the trust ever contacted me? I asked. Your identity was protected under the project name, Adrian explained. The trust became fully vested when you turned 25, but Rebecca required the trustee to withhold the beneficiary record until the original documents and security token were presented together. He removed a small black device from beneath the papers. The key did not create your ownership. It opened the proof required to confirm it. Grant spent 18 years making sure I never found the proof. Yes. A soft chime sounded from Noah's tablet. The board has called an emergency meeting for 6 o'clock this morning. Grant is requesting Adrian's removal for concealing a material ownership claim. I looked at the digital clock on the wall. It was 6 minutes after 1. Less than an hour had passed since I found the safe. My old life already felt like something I had left in another city. How does Grant know what was in this box? He may not know everything, Noah said, but he knows enough to understand what your verification could do to his control of the board. Then help me verify it. Adrian held my gaze. That requires trusting me. I remembered his warning in the dark. Trust no one. Not even me. No, I said. It requires information. Trust comes later. For the first time that night, something close to respect appeared in his face. He nodded. Noah opened a secured laptop on top of a filing cabinet. Adrian entered a long access code, then connected the security token from the box. A protected trust portal appeared on the screen. Noah called the trust company's 24-hour fiduciary office. Within minutes, a woman named Margaret Ellis joined us through a secure video connection. She was an attorney for the independent trustee. I showed her my driver's license, the original birth certificate, the key, and the notarized documents Rebecca had placed inside the box. Margaret asked me questions about my identity and childhood. She requested that I sign an acknowledgement on the screen. Before you continue, she said, you need to understand what this does. You already own the beneficial interest. Verification releases a voting proxy that the trustee has held under Rebecca Brooks's instructions. It also requires us to notify Cole Industries and its board. Adrian looked at me. Once the notice is sent, the press may learn your name, your employment history, your address, and every private detail someone can turn into a headline. I thought about my mother hiding for years. I thought about Adrian watching from a distance and deciding what I could know. That is what all of you keep doing, I said. You make choices for me, then call it protection. He went still. You are right. He moved away from the computer. The decision is yours. I sat in front of the screen. My hands trembled above the keyboard, but I did not pull them back. The portal asked for the beneficiary's full legal name. I entered Hannah Brooks, also identified in the trust as Hannah Eden Brooks. Margaret confirmed the documents and released the authorization. The screen changed. Beneficiary record confirmed. Trustee voting proxy released. Noah exhaled slowly. Adrian's phone began ringing almost at once. Grant Mercer's name appeared on the screen. Adrian declined the call. It rang again. Then the record's sweet intercom came alive with a smooth, older voice. "Good morning, Hannah. Your mother made the same mistake you are making now. She believed ownership meant power." I looked at Adrian, but this time I did not wait for him to decide what happened next. I pressed the intercom button. "Then come upstairs at 6, I said, "and watch me prove her right." By 5:30 that morning, the rain had stopped, but the city beyond the glass still looked washed of color. I stood in a private conference room 3 floors below Adrian's office, wearing the same gray, cleaning uniform I had put on the night before. A pale yellow stain marked one sleeve where bleach had splashed during my first hour. My shoes were damp. My hair had come loose from its knot. Around me, attorneys in tailored suits arranged documents worth more than every paycheck I had ever earned. And not one of them seemed willing to look directly at me. Adrian stood at the far end of the table, speaking quietly with Noah. He had removed his overcoat, but nothing else about him had softened. His white shirt remained pressed. His voice remained level. Only his eyes revealed that the night had changed him too. Margaret Ellis, the trust attorney who had verified my identity, placed a folder in front of me. "The board may attempt to delay formal recognition of the voting proxy," she explained. "Grant may argue that the trust was created under false pretenses." "Was it?" I asked. "No," Margaret said. "The trust documents are valid, and Daniel Hart's transfer was recorded before his death." I looked at Adrian. "Then we are not entering that room to ask permission." The conference room went quiet. Margaret slowly closed the folder. Adrian held my gaze, then nodded. "You are right." He crossed the room and placed one page on the table. It was a resignation letter. His signature waited at the bottom in dark blue ink. "What is this?" I asked. "A way to prevent Grant from turning the evidence into a private battle between us." "You think giving up your job will protect me?" "If the board believes I concealed your identity to preserve my authority, Grant can frame every document we present as part of a struggle for control. If I step aside during the investigation, he loses that argument. And you lose the company." The company was never mine alone. The words were simple, but I understood what they cost him. Adrian Cole had spent his adult life at the top of a tower built by his family. He spoke of power as if it were a burden, but he had still held it with both hands. Now he was prepared to release it before sunrise because my name had appeared on a trust record. I wanted to believe that meant something. I also remembered the photographs hidden behind his wall, the years he had watched without speaking. "Do not make another decision for me," I said. "Not even one you believe is noble." His expression tightened. "Then tell me what you want." No one had asked me that all night. I looked at the resignation letter, then at the black folder containing my mother's work. "I want the evidence placed on the table before anyone has time to reshape it. After that, you can decide what you are willing to lose." At 6 o'clock, the boardroom doors opened. 12 directors sat beneath a ceiling of pale glass, each place marked with a silver nameplate. Grant Mercer occupied the chair to Adrian's right. He appeared exactly as I expected and nothing like I feared. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair, a navy suit, and the calm smile of a man who had spent years being welcomed into rooms where other people made sacrifices. When he saw me, his expression warmed. "Hannah," he said, as though we were old friends. "You look remarkably like Rebecca." My hands went cold, but I kept walking. Adrian pulled out a chair for me at the center of the table. I did not sit until he moved away. Grant noticed. His smile deepened. "She taught you pride." That was always one of her more expensive qualities. "You changed my work assignment," I said. "You entered the building with an access card while your calendar placed you in Washington. You used Charles Cole's old override to open Adrian's safe." Several directors shifted in their seats. Grant folded his hands. "I arranged for the truth to find you. Adrian had 12 years. You could have contacted me. And told you what? That your mother helped build a fortune, concealed its weaknesses, and then disappeared." Adrian placed the original trust records on the table. "Rebecca documented unauthorized transfers inside this company. Rebecca participated in creating the system," Grant replied. "Do not turn regret into innocence." I thought of my mother's note. She had not asked anyone to call her innocent. She had asked me to learn the truth. Then show us the records, I said. Grant's eyes moved toward me. I beg your pardon. You claim she approved what happened. Show us her authorization. Not accounts she designed. Not transfers someone else made through her system. Show us her signature, her instructions, and her consent. The room became very still. Grant's smile faded by a fraction. That was enough. Noah connected the secured laptop to the boardroom display. Lines of transfers filled the wall, each traced from Cole Industries to companies controlled by Mercer Holdings. Margaret distributed copies of Rebecca's archived reports. The directors began turning pages. Questions moved around the table in low, uneasy voices. Grant did not look at the documents. He looked at Adrian. You would destroy your father's legacy for a woman who cleaned your office? Adrian remained standing behind my chair. No. I would return what my father allowed your ambition to take from her family. Grant leaned back. And what will you return when she learns you kept the most important truth from her? Something inside me tightened. Adrian did not move. What truth? I asked. Grant removed a certified investigation report from his portfolio and slid it across the polished table. Attached to the cover was an acknowledgement signed by Adrian 3 years earlier. Your private archive was never as secure as you believed, Grant said to him. I opened the report. Inside was a death certificate from Vermont dated 3 years earlier. Rebecca and Brooks. The cause was listed as complications from an illness. Beneath it was a photograph of a small cemetery surrounded by maple trees. One stone carried my mother's name. I could no longer hear the directors. I could not feel the chair beneath me. There was only the date. 3 years. Adrian had known for 3 years that my mother was gone. You found her, I whispered. He came around the table, but I raised one hand. He stopped. I found the record after her burial, he said. She had been living under another name. By the time I reached Vermont, the attorney handling her affairs had died, and the remaining records had been sealed. You let me believe she might still be alive. I intended to tell you after you understood who she had been and why she disappeared. A laugh escaped me. Small. Broken. There is no correct order for a lie. Grant watched us with quiet satisfaction. That was when I understood his plan. He had never expected to keep the truth hidden forever. He only needed it revealed at the moment when it could hurt most. Adrian placed his resignation letter on the table. Effective immediately, I am stepping aside as Chief Executive Officer until an independent investigation is completed. Voices rose around us. Grant sat straighter, victory appearing too quickly in his eyes. Margaret requested a formal emergency vote. Within minutes, the directors placed Grant on administrative suspension, froze all transfers connected to Mercer Holdings, and accepted Adrian's temporary resignation. I pushed back my chair. Adrian looked at me, but he did not try to stop me. Perhaps he had finally learned that protection without truth was only another form of control. I carried the report toward the doors. 2 powerful men had lost their authority before I reached the hallway. I should have felt justice. Instead, I felt 8 years old again, standing beside an empty casket while adults decided which truths I was strong enough to survive. Adrian followed me as far as the elevator. Hannah. I pressed the button. You watched my life from a distance, I said without turning around. You knew where I lived, where I worked, and when my aunt entered the hospital. But you could not cross that distance to tell me my mother was gone. The elevator doors opened. His reflection appeared beside mine in the steel. For the first time, he looked like a man without an answer. I am sorry, he said. I stepped inside. That is the first thing you have given me without trying to control how I receive it. The doors began to close. Adrian remained in the hallway, with no title left to protect and no command capable of holding me there. I watched him disappear behind the narrowing line of metal, and I understood that losing power was not the same as becoming worthy of forgiveness. 3 weeks passed before I saw Adrian Cole again. During that time, Grant Mercer was formally removed from the board. Federal investigators opened a review of the company's financial records, and my name appeared in newspapers beside words such as heir, scandal, and secret fortune. Reporters waited outside my apartment in Queens. Strangers sent messages asking for money, interviews, favors, and explanations I did not have. The grocery store placed me on unpaid leave because customers kept taking photographs. Cole Industries offered me a private driver, a hotel suite, and a communications team. I refused all 3. For most of my life, Being invisible had felt like proof that I did not matter. Now visibility felt like a room without curtains. Aunt Claire watched the news from her hospital bed without speaking. She had known more than she ever told me. I could see it in the way her fingers tightened around the blanket whenever my mother's photograph appeared on television. "You knew she survived the fire," I said. Claire closed her eyes. For a while. Her voice was thin from treatment, but every word carried weight. "Rebecca called me 6 months after it happened. She said people were watching. She made me promise to keep you away from coal industries." "Did she tell you where she was?" "Never for long. Vermont. Ohio. Somewhere in Maine once." She kept moving. I sat beside her and stared at the rain sliding down the hospital window. Why did she not come back for me? Claire reached for my hand. Because she believed distance was the only protection she had left to give. I wanted to be angry. I was angry. But grief had changed shape so many times that I could no longer tell where one feeling ended and another began. Claire opened the Bible beside her bed and removed a small envelope. My mother's handwriting covered the front. "For Hannah, when hiding no longer protects her." "Rebecca mailed this to me 4 years ago," Claire said. "She told me to give it to you only if you discovered the truth yourself or if her connection to coal industries became public." Inside was a single page. Rebecca did not ask me to forgive her. She did not call herself a victim. She wrote that fear had taught her to confuse secrecy with love. She wrote that Adrian had been a frightened 17-year-old boy when she guided him out of the warehouse, and that he had looked at her as though she had returned the entire world to him. She trusted him to watch over me because he understood what it meant to inherit consequences he had not created. Her final words stayed with me. "Power does not reveal character, Hannah. It reveals what character was hiding." I read the letter until the words blurred. Then I called Noah. Bennett. Adrian was living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the west side, 12 floors above a laundromat, and several miles from the tower that still carried his name. He had refused company security. He had also declined every request from the board to return. When I knocked, he opened the door wearing a plain gray sweater and dark pants. No suit. No assistant. No polished desk between us. For the first time, he looked his age. "Hannah." He said my name carefully, as if it belonged entirely to me now. "May I come in?" He stepped aside without answering for me. The apartment was quiet and nearly empty. A coffee mug sat beside a stack of investigation documents. My mother's black file rested closed on the dining table. "You still have it," I said. "It belongs to you." "Then why did you keep it?" "Because I hoped you would come for it." I turned toward him. "You could have called. You asked for distance. And you listened." "I am learning." There was no charm in his voice. No claim. Only fatigue and something more difficult to face. Regret without a demand for comfort. I placed my mother's letter on the table. Adrian recognized the handwriting immediately. He read the page beneath the weak kitchen light. When he reached the final line, he sat down. "She trusted me," he said. And I repeated her worst mistake. "You thought secrecy was protection. I thought knowing more gave me the right to decide more." He looked at me. It did not. I had imagined this conversation many times. In some versions, I shouted. In others, I walked away before he could speak. Instead, I asked the question that had followed me since the elevator doors closed. "Why did you surrender your position?" Adrian folded the letter carefully. "Because keeping it would have required using your mother's history against you. Grant expected me to do that. My father would have done it. For a few minutes, I almost convinced myself it was necessary. But you did not." "No, why?" His eyes held mine. "Because you looked at me and asked for the truth." I realized I had spent my life protecting an empire that never once asked whether I was becoming someone worthy of trust. Silence filled the apartment. It was not the heavy silence from his office. This one did not trap me. It waited. "The board wants me to accept a seat and lead the restructuring," I said. "Will you?" "Not alone." I slid a folder across the table. Inside was a proposal for an independent ethics council, employee profit sharing, public disclosure of the Mercer accounts, and a foundation for families harmed by the company's hidden transactions. Adrian read every page. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Help me understand what my mother built. Help me dismantle what corrupted it. No hidden rooms. No surveillance. No choices made in my name. And after that, we see who you become without the power to force an answer." He nodded. "That is fair." It was not forgiveness. Not yet. It was a door left unlocked. 1 year later, I returned to the 60th floor of Cole Tower. The black safe had been removed. The former surveillance room had become a transparent records office with glass walls and independent oversight. My name appeared on the door in small silver letters. Hannah Brooks, chair of the board. I stood at the window, watching morning light move across Manhattan, when someone knocked. Adrian waited in the hallway, holding 2 cups of coffee and a folder marked for review. He had returned as chief executive officer 6 months earlier after an independent board vote, under the rules we had created together. He did not enter. He waited. I looked at the man who had once controlled every room simply by standing inside it. Then I smiled and opened the door. "Come in, Adrian." He crossed the threshold only after I moved aside. He once ruled the tower. My mother taught me why that was never enough. In the quiet space between power and permission, he finally learned to knock.